libation for the presence of
Oh, let's
all
see.
the
I'm
oppressed.
always
She said,
looking. I'm
let's
sorry,
see,
Kate.
Are we starting? Are we starting at 1 minute? Really at 7:7?
Streaming.
Oh, you start the screen.
Não, vai esperar não. Mas é o depô. Era isso,
Die
Deus.
akademische.
Yeah. Yeah.
É, não tem problema.
Also mir haben schon einige geschrieben, dass sie heute nicht kommen,
Ich
weil
hab
sie
schon-
arbeiten, aber die schauen sich den Stream an. Also
Ja, aber 15 ist schon ein bisschen hart, oder?
Ich habe schon gehört, die Viertel akademische Stunde
Ja.
würde man gerne. No. Hey, querido. You mean what? We can put that somewhere.
Yeah.
at 8.
Hello.
Stromsparmodus aktiviert. Are you in there?
Yeah.
Is it loading or is it?
No, it's not.
Not loading?
Talk to him.
Who can help me with all
No, you don't have to. You don't. You don't. You just have to know.
Okay.
So are you going to start and introduce? No, I mean for the ritual.
Okay, but I got to reach.
No. Do you want?
You can start the ritual. Okay. So I just start.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. My name is Patrick Bongola, aka Topoke. This is Araba Evelyn Johnston-Arthur, and we have Denise Palmieri here with us today. We would like to start by opening this space with a ritual. It is very important for us. This ritual will be in remembering our ancestors, remembering those who passed away. Araba had the great idea, and we are going along with it because we think it is very important that we remember spiritually our ancestors, that we have this connection, and I think we can start.
Okay.
Thank you. You are also invited to go along and to say Ashe, but I think you will catch the vibe.
And I'm still very new in this, so please bear with me. All right. So we are all pouring libation in honor of the earth, and after I pour that, we'll say Ashe, and it means nothing else but so shall it be. All right. So whoever feels called to say it can say it. We also will have a space where we will honor all of the ancestors that are here, that inspired you, that you love, that you miss, that you don't know about, or that you know about, whoever comes to your mind, and in a broader sense. Okay, so we are pouring libation in honor of the earth. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour libation to honor the presence of all the forgotten histories, of all the uncried tears, of all the unloved loves, of all the unlived lives, of all the undreamed dreams. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour libation to honor the presences of all the ancestors of the people here. And now you're free to name whoever comes to your mind. If it's silent, that's also fine. If you want to name them loud, then that's also fine. We will echo their names for you. Okay.
I would like to pour libation for Patrice Emery Lumumba, the first Prime Minister of the Congo. Ashe.
Ashe.
I would like to pour libation for Thomas Sankara, the hero of Africa. Ashe.
Ashe.
I would like to pour libation for all the revolutionaries, men and women, that fought against oppression, colonialism, racism, sexism, homophobia. Ashe.
Ashe.
I would like to pour libation for Aparecida da Silva e todas elas e eles que estiveram antes de mim e que me guiaram esse caminho. Ashe.
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 I would like to call libation for all the victims of the coup d'etat in Chile, which has the anniversary now 50 years.
Ashe.
Muito axé para Zulmira Almeida, Maria José Almeida, todos os meus ancestrais muito fortes que fizeram estar aqui hoje. Axé.
Ashe.
You are invited to join in if you have anybody that you would like to name.
I would like to pour for my ancestors and everybody who's in Austria and cannot voice himself.
Ashe.
I would like to pour libation for my grandfather, called Musée. Everyone calls him Musée. And I would also like to pour libation for all of the lost souls who lost their dreams, lives, hopes in Rwanda. Ashe.
Ja, für Sebane Wage, für Markus Omufuma, für Edwin Dupu und alle Menschen, die durch Polizeigewalt in Österreich, genauso wie in Europa, ermordet worden sind. Ashe.
So maybe we can now pour libation to everyone that you are thinking of, or on the way to think of, or maybe the names come later, so we just can be quiet a little bit. And we just say, Ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the ritual. My name is Sarah van Dordrecht. I'm the director of Topoke, and I welcome you. This is our season opening, as well as the beginning of a 3-part series of the WIENWOCHE discourse program here. So there will be the cultural changes within the non-aligned movement, a former Yugoslav perspective on Wednesday, and on Thursday, Wer hat Angst vor Museum der Migration? It was founded this weekend, and I'm so excited to have a great panel here on Thursday. So come back and take our program, come back this fall. And I'm very happy that I work with WIENWOCHE again. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Jelena, and all the participants and artists of WIENWOCHE.
I would just very shortly greet everyone in the room and on the stream. Thank you so much for following our program. I would also like to mention that we have a video screening also at Depot during the working hours in the frame of the festival, which is based on the key image of this year's topic. It's getting cold in here. Sarah, thank you so much for hosting us this year again, and I am looking forward to future collaborations.
Thank you. Thank you, Jelena. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Topoke. Thank you, Araba. So my name is Denise Palmieri. I am the co-curator of this year's WIENWOCHE Festival. And this podium discussion will focus on the ritual, the procession performance VHZ 1896 Legacies of the Healing, in connection with the artistic work, research, and practice that have unfolded in the preparation of this project, hosted at WIENWOCHE 2023. Here we have tonight, presenting this podium, Araba Evelyn Johnston-Arthur. She is the co-founder of PAMOJA, Movement of Young African Diaspora in Austria, and the research group of Black Austrian History. She has engaged as community and cultural worker and racist critical activist in Vienna. In 1999, she was an active part of the network of African communities, which focus lay in the mobilization of transdisciplinary work, engaging with intersectional resistance, diasporian politics, and the decolonizing art of mattering embodied memories. She currently teaches at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Araba, for being here. And at my side, I have Topoke. He is an Afro-Austrian, Vienna-based artist, musician, actor, educator, activist from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He has been living in Austria since 1987 and moved to Vienna from Saalfelden in 1989. He has been and still is active both in front and behind the camera. Thank you, Topoke. Welcome, everyone. And now I give the word to the panelists.
Yes, thank you, Denise. Thank you for this introduction. Thank you, Araba, for being here tonight. And together we will present our little or big VHZ, Legacies of the Healing work that we did. Maybe we can go to the next slide. This is a little bit how it's going to be going today. So I will be introducing the Igbo landing. Then we will go into words and languages, what is very important for me. Language is very important. Communication is very important. Quantum entanglements and epigenetics. I know some people cringe when they hear that word, but do not lose your nerves. Everything is fine. Nothing racist will happen today, except if it comes from certain people. We will be talking about historical facts of the DRC and Belgium, and we will finish, or I will finish, with the human zoos in Belgium, Germany, and Austria. Yes, before then, going into the subject matter of the procession, the ritual, and the performance, talking about the color codes, of course, the Pan-African colors, the Pan-African flag, the UNIA flag, talking about the White Walkers, what they mean, why are they called White Walkers and dressed the way they were dressed. Can I have a show of hands who saw the performance on Sunday? Okay, a few of you. I think Simon and a lot of people have pictures and videos online that you can check on the WIENWOCHE website or on the VHZ website as well. The drum section, procession, ritual, performance, as I said. And then Araba would be talking about, yes, I forgot to take that out, but you know what you're going to be talking about, so we can skip that. Yes, I will now start with the Igbo landing. This is a drawing by Donovan Nelson depicting a certain act of resistance laid by kidnapped Africans from the Igbo tribe of today's Nigeria. The event is known as the Igbo Landing and took place in May of 1803 at Dunbar Creek on St. Simon's Island, Glynn County, Georgia, United States of America. A group of kidnapped Africans took over the white human traffickers' ship that carried them, and they killed their captors. This caused the ship to ground on shallow waters or in shallow waters. The Africans freed themselves, and having no means of getting back home to the motherland, chose to drown themselves in the marshy waters of Dunbar Creek rather than becoming enslaved and forced to work in the death camps of the white human traffickers. Words and languages, resistance. Although this collective suicide was a dramatic form of resistance, most of the general population resisted invasion and colonial rule by slowing down the process of production or resisting policies that went against their interest, like taxes, for example. Yes, not paying your taxes is an act of resistance. So most battles were not big and bright as one would imagine, but subtle and undramatic, giving fake directions, for example. When the colonizer would come and would ask where he could find a certain village or certain people, they would send them in the other direction, right? Slowing down the process of colonization. So these were small acts with a big impact, of course. The real battles and armed resistance often occurred at the beginning of the colonial conquest. So when the Europeans came to colonize Africa or colonize Latin America or colonize Asia, it was mostly when they landed that there was the biggest resistance. But of course, the technological power firepower of the colonizer was such that sooner or later the colonized had to give in, but they never stopped fighting, they never stopped resisting. I'd like to list a few examples of these battles. We have Haiti in 1804. Haiti is, Kémy Séba says that Muslims have a place where they can pilgrim, and that's Mecca, right? Christians have a place where they can pilgrim to, and that is, I think, the Vatican. I'm not sure. And Kémy Séba says that for black people, the place they should pilgrim to is Haiti, because Haiti showed us that it was possible. Their revolution went over years, 1791 to 1804. In 1803, Napoleon wanted to reinstate slavery. Can we go to the next? This is Napoleon Bonaparte. Everybody knows Napoleon. Napoleon is taught in history classes and history courses across Europe. Everybody knows what a great fighter he was, what a great military man, what a great general he was, and all the good deeds that he has done. But of course, he was the one that also reinstated slavery. And the reason why Dessalines, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, also joined the rebellion of Toussaint Louverture and fought back against the French army. You have to realize that the French army back in the days was like the US American army today. It was an imperial army. It was an army with massive resources, massive technology, and to resist such an invader and such an army, I think anyone can imagine trying to resist the United States of America today, for example. It's kind of, I don't know if it's a good analogy, but that's what I wrote down. Deal with it. So Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who joined the slave rebellion on the island of Hispaniola and distinguished himself as a lieutenant of Toussaint Louverture, fighting and defeating the French army of Napoleon Bonaparte. We can go to the next slide. This is what I think of this man. What is forgotten and why Haiti is hated is because the Haitian Revolution was the beginning of many revolutions in Latin America. Some of you might not know that the Haitian flag today is incorporated into the flags of Ecuador, into the flags of Venezuela and Colombia. That's how much Ecuador, Venezuela, and Colombia love Haiti and respect Haiti and want to show their appreciation of what Haiti started, this revolution that they started. And Haiti knew that it had to partner, had to look for allies in other countries in the region because they knew that the colonizer, that the white supremacist would come back and fight them. So they needed allies. And they helped Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela to resist and to overthrow their colonizers. That is why the Haitian flag is incorporated in a few of these Latin American flags. We can go on. This is a picture of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, of course, yes. As you can see, he crowned himself later as an emperor of Haiti. And when they defeated the French, Napoleon, of course, invited him over to France to somehow break a deal. But as you know, you can never trust European deals. They always break their deals. They never stand to their word. Ask the Native Americans of the United States of America and elsewhere, other people as well. So as Dessalines went to France to broker a deal, he was incarcerated and eventually died in captivity. We can go on. This is still him. Now we have the Battle of Adwa. We are now in East Africa. 1895, Italy tried to overtake Abyssinia, and first they tried to trick the people of Abyssinia. And then, when that did not work, because it is a proud people with a lot of culture, a deep understanding of who they are, as are all other people of the world, they then went in and tried to take over Ethiopia with their military. Emperor Menelik II and Empress Taitu managed to mobilize the entire nation against the invasion. It is important, and I will come back to this, so please keep this in mind, that they mobilized the entire nation to fight against the colonizer. This is so very important to remember and to keep in mind. We can go to the next slide. We have Samori Touré in West Africa now, yes, of the Wasulu Empire. He fought with about 30 to 40,000 men for 18 years. For 18 years, he fought the French invasion, the French colonizers in West Africa. And you can imagine that was back in the days, in the 1800s. And if you follow the news today, it hasn't stopped. It has not stopped. We can go to the next slide. We have Tanganyika, that is a part of Tanzania today. So Tanzania is Tanganyika and Zanzibar. So Tanganyika, in 1888, Abushiri tried fighting off the German colonizer with 8,000 men. By 1905, most of the land was taken from the indigenous population. They were turned into poorly paid laborers, slaves basically, and had to pay taxes. You remember I said a form of resistance was not to pay your taxes, yes, or to delay the payment. Over the years of resistance, the Germans had killed off as many as 100,000 resistance forces. While I was doing this research, I tried to get numbers from the internet, but obviously I'm not that good at getting numbers. But I wanted to find out how many people actually died through the hands of the colonizer, through the hands of the imperial powers, right? Because I wanted to tell you some form of a number. There is one number that I will name, but maybe I could just name it now. In my country, the Congo, we have about 20 million people who were killed by the Belgian colonizer. Just to give you a slight idea of the numbers. But obviously, our dead people do not count as much as your dead people or some other dead people. Resistance and resilience has always been within our DNA and continues to be up until this very day. Here are just 3 examples of the latest events on the African continent. We have Mali in 2021 with Assimi Goïta, who continues with the tradition of resistance against the French colonizer. And of course, you have people to this day that do not understand that these movements of resistance, these so-called coups d'etats, are actually a restitution of some kind of Ordnung in English? Order, thank you, of some kind of order. And they are called terrorists, they are called against democratic rule, against democracy, but you never hear those same voices talk about the oppressed people by democratically elected leaders who are supported by Europe and by the West and by France. There, everybody is hushing up and not talking about these deaths, these oppressions. But as soon as you have proud Africans that want to restore some kind of order, they are attacked, they are vilified, there's a propaganda war that is started against them. And this is something that I invite Europeans to open their eyes and their ears and their hearts to. Let's go on to Burkina Faso in the year 2022. Ibrahim Traoré, another hero, And I will say, yes, he's a hero. Frees his country from French neo-colonial meddling. Next in line, we have Niger. Niger, everybody talks about Niger today. Niger has cut the uranium export towards France and the resources towards France. These resources were exploited at a really cheap price. France allows its nuclear plants to run on uranium from Niger. This means that families in France have electricity to cook, to warm their homes. They have electricity to send their children at school so they can be educated. They have electricity so they can use their phones and their cars. And the people in Niger, where this uranium comes from, have no electricity at all, have no running water, have no education. But it's all good. It is all good as long as it's a democratically elected leader who is supported by the West. And if this democratically elected leader is brought to a fall by the military, then it is a coup d'etat and it is against democracy. Who profits from democracy? Resistance, resilience, words, language. Language is a form of communication. Yes, right there. Language is a form of communication. So is music, so is dance, movement, body and or sign language, emails, text messages. You can even communicate on the quantum level nowadays. Quantum physics. It's called quantum entanglement. Next, when you have two particles, let's say two electrons, and you link them, two electrons, and you link them in such a way that they remain interconnected through time and space. They are intertwined. They become the same thing. They are two different things, but through quantum physics, they are intertwined and become the same. They are basically the same thing, and that's called quantum entanglement. But it gets even crazier. You can take one of these electrons, one of these particles, and send it across the room. Hell, you can send it across town. Fuck that. You can send it across the universe, across the galaxy, and they remain entangled. This is the crazy thing about quantum entanglement. This means if I shake one electron on this side, the electron on the other side of the galaxy will also shake. They are the same. Time and space do not matter. You might ask yourself what quantum physics and human zoos have in common. It's like asking me what Europe and racism have to do with one another, but please bear with me, you might understand later on. Another word I find interesting and where people cringe is epigenetics. Epigenetics is a term used in the fields of genetics and biology. Epigenetics helps us understand the complexity of gene regulation, how our bodies adapt to different environments, and how certain diseases might be influenced by both genetics and environment. What is also an important aspect in these epigenetic changes, and that should be noted, is that they are heritable. That means they are passed on to the next generations. So, what your ancestors have gone through in the past has been genetically coded and passed on down to you. All the love, the pain, the struggle, the success, the failures, the consequences. A people interconnected and intertwined through time and space. Their ancestors, their history, their struggles woven together and epigenetically passed on to this present generation. You are the sum of those that came before you. And the way you live and what you go through today affects your offspring tomorrow. It's funny how chaos and order lie so close to one another. Just like genius and madness, love and hate, joy and pain, sunshine and global warming. Yup. Climate change, something else Europeans have gracefully shared with the rest of the world, even though we didn't ask for it. But here we are, the global south, suffering the worst consequences of this planetary catastrophe. What do we say? I guess we say thank you. Thank you for sizing, for measuring, for designing, and industrializing practically every inch of life on the planet. Your scientists say we have now reached one of the many points of no return. We're basically walking dead. What does climate change have to do with human zoos? Epigenetics, quantum entanglement. Here are some facts about the DRC and Belgium so that you know what my background is. The Democratic Republic of Congo, Kinshasa, the country I grew up in, gained its independence in 1960, 12 years before I was born. Under the leadership of the young Congolese national hero and democratically elected Prime Minister Patrice Emery Lumumba, the breakaway from the Belgian colonizer was carried out. Here you have the Democratic Republic of the Congo, before it was called Zaire, and before that it was called the Congo. And on the right you have Belgium. But can you go to the next slide? This is, no. Can I do this? Thank you. The next slide, this is not actually the size of Belgium. Belgium is much smaller than the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So just that you have an idea who the hell colonized, the relation, the ratio. King Leopold was broke as hell. The royal family of Belgium had no money. Too many wars, too much going on, no more coins. And he was looking for colonies to exploit because half of Europe, if not all of Europe, was looking for colonies. And he said, might be a good idea. His eyes were directed on the Congo because he had read the travel reports of an American journalist by the name of Henry Morton Stanley. So in 1876, King Leopold organized a big geography conference in Belgium. In 1878, he met Stanley, and they made a 5-year deal. The expedition to buy up the lands along the Congo River. So basically what the king said is, you go on a 5-year mission. Your scientific mission is to find the source of the Congo River. But actually, the real mission, the hidden agenda, was to buy up the lands left and right from the Congo, right? So, the brutal reign of Belgium over the Congo began thanks to the Industrial Revolution and the growing need for caoutchouc or rubber. King Leopold II, who considered the Congo as his private property, he never set foot in the Congo. King Leopold never went to the Congo, never. But it was his private property. King Leopold, who considered the Congo his private property, was literally bleeding the indigenous population and made a fortune out of it. Conservative estimates say between 7 and 15 million indigenous Congolese victims fell to this genocide. I said 20 million because you know how Europeans play around with numbers and they tend to make themselves look better. So they say, it wasn't that much. It was 7 million, maybe 15 million. It was at least 20 million Congolese that died by European colonizers, in this case, Belgians. What followed after half an eternity of humiliation, degradation, torture, kidnapping, enslavement, rape, exploitation, colonization, extortion, war, disease, genocide was, yes, what actually? What? The liberation? For a blink of an eye, it seemed possible to fly, the hope to be free, freedom. Yet, they also took that away from us. According to one of the men responsible for the murder of Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba, here is Patrice Lumumba, and behind him, on his left side, you have Mobutu Sese Seko Kukubendu Wazabanga. I grew up under his dictatorship. I grew up under propaganda. When I talk to you about propaganda, I am teaching you. You cannot teach me about propaganda. I can teach you about propaganda. I grew up under a dictator that had morning, noon, and evening his speeches on radio and on television. Tout comme le soleil se lève avec éclat chaque matin et se couche le soir aux horizons du grand et majestueux fleuve Zaïre, fier d'avoir apporté à l'humanité le ferment de survie nécessaire. Le Zaïre, son parti national, le mouvement populaire de la Révolution, ses 30 millions de militantes et militants, hommes, femmes, enfants, jeunes et vieux, tous, flambeaux du tricolore à la main, sont aujourd'hui debout, mobilisés, déterminés et rangés derrière un seul homme, animés d'un seul idéal pour bâtir dans la paix, la justice, le travail, l'unité nationale, un pays toujours plus beau, toujours plus prospère et prêt pour le grand rendez-vous du donner et du recevoir. Mobutu Sese Seko Kukubendu Wazabanga, in my DNA. This is another picture of Patrice Lumumba. And if you look closely, this is my father. Can you go to the next slide, please? The next slide, please. This is Patrice Lumumba after he came back from a conference in Belgium, trying to negotiate our freedom, our independence. This is my father next to Patrice Lumumba. I will talk to you a little bit more about my own history in a few minutes. We got 5 more minutes, so let me rush through this. Sad, sad but true. Okay, yes. Yes, to tell you the truth, let's then skip. This is King Leopold. This is Livingston with an indigenous person. This is the way they were cutting the hands of the, thank you, the way they were cutting the hands of the indigenous population if they did not meet the quota. So you had to bring a quota of rubber, and if you didn't meet that quota, they would cut off your hands. Here you have indigenous people, indigenous pride, indigenous men holding the hands of their tribe men and women that have been cut off. Here you have a father looking at the hands of his children. Because the father did not bring enough rubber, they cut off the hands of his children. This is European democracy right here. To this day. I know that it makes you uncomfortable, but this is just what is happening to this day. If you go to the mines of the Congo, the cobalt mines of the Congo, the coltan mines of the Congo, the gold mines of the Congo, the diamond mines of the Congo, you will see nothing else but children working there to make a living, trying to survive. Nothing changed. This is your democracy. Thank you very much. Now, this man here is one of the men responsible for the murder of Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba. This is Mr. Etienne d'Avignon. He sent a telex back to Kinshasa while Lumumba was fighting for independence. And he was so angry that he said in the telex is a form of message back in the days. Most of you don't know this. He called for the elimination of Lumumba. And then, when this telex was presented to him in our modern times, he actually said that he should have written, I wanted Lumumba to be sidelined. I didn't want him to be executed. He wrote, eliminate Lumumba. But he says, I meant sideline him. Now imagine you work for the Secret Service, you work for the Belgian Empire, and you get a message from somebody important telling you to eliminate someone. How would you understand this? Elimination heißt elimination. Sideline means to sideline. To eliminate means to eliminate. This is the cognitive dissonance that white people and Europeans live with. You are delusional. Cognitive dissonance. Another word, right? Another word. Language. This is a picture that you don't really often see when you dig into the history of the Congo and when you see Patrice Lumumba being arrested. You always see him surrounded by indigenous soldiers, black people oppressing their own people. But this is how he got caught. White people, Europeans, French, Belgium, Americans. But you never see this picture. They never show this picture. They never show this picture. Cognitive dissonance. You should feel happy. You should feel proud of your democracy, of your freedom, above Africans that know nothing of freedom, that know nothing of struggle, that know nothing of revolution, that know nothing of resistance, that are animals, monkeys. This is what they used to call us, monkeys. These are the monsters right there. Your ancestors passing it down into your DNA. It's you today. I won't go into these details. Just to let you know, the way they killed Lumumba and the people that worked with him, they shot them, they cut them up, they put them in fas, oil, how do you call these oil? Barrels. They put them in barrels full of acid so that they can dissolve the bodies. And 2 Belgian officers kept 2 teeth of Lumumba. Each officer kept a tooth as some kind of morbid souvenir of what they did. Not long ago, they returned these teeth to the Congo, and we could have a national mourning and bury the rest of our national hero. Some call him terrorist here in the West, but he was our national hero, Patrice Emery Lumumba. My father had to flee the country. He had to go to Sudan, to Saudi Arabia, to Moscow, and he came to Vienna. And that's how I came to be. They called Lumumba Satan. They called Malcolm X Satan. We are the devil. We are the dark side. We are black. You are white. You are the innocence. You are the purity. You are good. You are democratic. You are what we all have to be like. From 1885 up until 1958, Belgium exhibited human beings from the global south, especially from the Congo. King Leopold had a colonial palace built in Tervuren. There's still a museum of Tervuren today where they have all our art, our spiritual, our us. They have us in their museums. They have the audacity to say that we have no history. They have the audacity to say that we are nobody and nothing, that we have brought nothing to this world. The first mathematical coding comes from the Congo. It's in this museum in Tervuren. Go online, Google it. I'm not going to start teaching you about your own abomination and of history. Brussels wasn't the only country, or Belgium wasn't the only country that had human zoos. In Berlin, from 1879 to 1940, even the Germans stopped having human zoos or Völkerschau before the Belgians, right? And of course, in America, the United States of America, you had until 1904 in Louisiana, Missouri, where the infamous Otabenga from the Congo was exhibited, paraded around like an animal, even placed in a zoo, in a real zoo with monkeys, so that white people could come and look at our beautiful, beautiful Otabenga from the Congo and compare him to monkeys. This is you. This is passed on into your DNA. This is you. And of course, our good old Grantiges Wien, right? The Vienna Human Zoos from 1870 to 1910 in the Prater, in the Tiergarten. And that's where we had our VHZ, Vienna Human Zoo, Legacies of the Healing, yesterday. Whoever saw it, thank you for coming and supporting. Now, as I told you, here is Lumumba with the soldiers. They always show you with the black people. This is Mobutu, right? The dictator, together with your queen, yes, your elites, your oligarchs, those who stole South African diamonds, one of the biggest diamonds in the world, and put it in their crown. That's them right there. This is 1955 in the Congo. Just to be funny, they put a Congolese child in a cage, and the father took a picture of his daughters and sent it around the world, right? Ha ha ha, he he hoo hoo hoo. This is you, passed on in your DNA. This is you. Yes? This is Tervuren, 1958. You have to imagine, 2 years before we have our independence in 1960, Lumumba was going around, flying to Belgium, trying to negotiate the independence. While this was happening, this too, as well, was happening. Right? Völkerschau, Berlin, Ansichtskarten, right? Postcards. Otabenga, Missouri, United States of America, with a little chimpanzee, right? The pygmy in the zoo. Und das gute alte Wien, im Tiergarten, K&K Prater. Yes. Sissi. Schönbrunn. Yeah. This is you. This is you. This is you. Legacies of the Healing. Let's go to the color codes now. Thank you for taking over. Color codes, those of you who saw or who assisted to the performance, the ritual, the procession, you saw that the performers were dressed in certain colors. I will now try to explain the colors. So the first color we have is red. Red stands for life, health, vigor, war, courage, anger, love, religious fervor. Black, mystery, power, elegance, sophistication, sadness, anger. Green, down to earth, new beginning, growth, abundance, envy, jealousy. Yellow, associated with the sun, optimism, joy, energy, happiness, friendship. White, purity, innocence, cleanliness, blankness, coldness, emptiness, simplicity. The Pan-African colors, the flag of the UNIA, red, black, and green. I heard there was a controversy because of these colors. I was told to stick to the program, so let me stick to the program. If you want to know more, come to my Instagram page. In the next days, I will be uploading something. The Pan-African flag, also known as the UNIA flag, was initiated by Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was also a controversy, and people had something to say about Marcus Garvey. They always have something to say about our people. They always have something to say about our people. Always. Their people are good. Their people get Nobel Peace Prize while bombing other countries. Their people are good. Our people are terrorists. The UNIA flag was initiated by Marcus Garvey, a Jamaican-born political activist and first President General of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. The controversial figure promoted the Back to Africa movement and calls for racial separatism, which caused division between him and other activists such as W.E.B. Du Bois. He is still regarded as a national hero in Jamaica, and his ideas exerted a considerable influence on such movements as the Rastafari, the Nation of Islam, and the Black Power movement. I would like to state this controversy, the Jewish controversy. As it turns out, Jewish people played an undeniable role in plantation slavery in Jamaica. Ironically, Jewish exiles in the strange lands of the so-called New World were complicit in the process of enslaving Africans. Forced to sing King Alpha's song, Africans in the diaspora found consolation in the sacred book of the Jews. They created their own dub version of Jewish songs of lamentation. How Jewish people came to be engaged in plantation slavery in the Caribbean is a rather long and complicated story. The tribunal of the Holy Office of the Inquisition, more popularly known as the Spanish Inquisition, launched a holy war against non-Catholics in 1480. Jews and Muslims were the targets of these attacks. The tribunal was not abolished until 1834, the very same year that slavery was outlawed by the British in the Caribbean. The Jewish exile in the Caribbean enabled the transatlantic trade of enslaved Africans and the migration of waves of indentured laborers from Europe and Asia. This is the other half of the Jamaican Jewish history that must be told. As soon as the word Jewish fell, I felt this energy. I felt it. Believe me, I felt it. Trust me. I know. White Walkers. White Walkers. They represent the paradigm in which we all live in. We are trapped in a system which undoubtedly has tried, and for some is still trying, to oppress, exploit, and exterminate any diverging worldview. We move and survive alongside a murderous and life-threatening structure that was imposed upon the world by an Eurocentric administration, which has successfully colonized quite a number of people on this planet. So also non-white people have a very wide thinking. Thank you. By the end of the performance, we realize that the oppression is internalized and we must be stripped. That's when they take off their masks and everything from our psyche. There is still a lot of work to be done here. I'm finishing. The drums, they represent the heartbeat. Once was forbidden by the colonizers because that's the way we would communicate. Yes? And they racialized even our sound. Even our sound was racialized. Yes? More to that another time. We have the healer, Henna, which did a wonderful, wonderful healing performance and also included the people that not only took part in this performance, but also the people around. Yes, she's from Abya Yala, from Mexico, and it was a very central and crucial, if not one of the most important parts of the performance for me. She initiated this ritual to not only cleanse the space as we did today with you together, but also each participant, and prepared the grounds for a spiritual connection with our ancestors. The 4 celestial directions, north, east, west, and south, and the skies and Mother Earth were also implored, and the permission was asked to initiate this whole performance. And of course, I have to say thank you very much to Grace Latigo for her speech at the end. It was wonderful. So, once again, let me finish up. We are the sum of our ancestors that have resiliently resisted genocide and cultural extermination. And we carry on with the struggle, the fight for survival, because it is encrypted, epigenetically quantum entangled in our DNA. The procession, ritual, and performances aim to rehumanize, thank you for this, Araba, to rehumanize a people who were dehumanized by an incomprehensible, mean, and demeaning part of the human family. That would be you, the Europeans. Thank you very much.
So I will pass the word to Araba. I will start your presentation.
So maybe I can say something in the meantime. Do I need to? Is it loud enough? Okay. It's not so easy to continue after my brother Topoke spoke. I called my reflection a poetic inquiry into legacies of the healing. I don't know, is it? Yes. Yes. And Topoke, you said the time, there's so much you mentioned, but you said the time that you spoke out Jewish, you could feel it in the room.
I felt it.
And I'm sure you could also feel me in the room.
I felt you.
Yes. So there is a lot to, I can't just not say anything, but my words are not yet coming, so we definitely will talk.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still very raw, so yeah. So first of all, I want to thank the organizers of WIENWOCHE. I want to thank Topoke for the invitation. I was at the procession yesterday. My approach has, this is a very complicated place, like Austria is a very complicated place, and it's, if you want to study repression, this is the place to be, especially Vienna. I don't know so much about other places. And it is a neo-colonial space, but it's also a post-Nazistic space. And there is repressions that I don't find have to be in competition with each other. I think for all of us, there's enough oppression. We don't need to fight about it. And I still believe that it's possible to resist together against one system. And with regards to yesterday's procession, I really truly believe that the earth, the ground where this took place, which was in Prater, Tikuswiese, right? Tikuswiese, was transformed. It was transformed with this ritual, and it was a healing that we needed. So I want to also thank all of the performers. I would need glasses, so I might be a bit slow, and I'm still in denial that I do need glasses. So Alexandra Santos, Vivian Crespo, Topoke, Grace Latigo, Gold Caviar crew, Denise and Valence, Eve Jambo, Henna Moreno. Okay, wonderful. If somebody's here as well. Okay.
Eve
okay.
is here.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Henna Moreno, Corso, Nina Sandino, Andrea Vesca.
Acevedo.
Thank you so much. Acevedo, Lamin Camara.
And Fode also, and Asan.
Okay, thank you. And it was in participation with Estudio El Gosa.
El Goso,
El
yes.
Goso, thank you, El Goso. Vista Viana, Maricel Orellana, Bongola. So thank you everyone thank you all the performers. Now, I'm trying to find my, I wish we could just talk now, but yeah, I'm just trying to find back. And so, maybe we can move to the next slide. Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay. So the image that you see is from the book Farming While Black, Soul Fire Farm's Guide to Liberation on the Land. And this painting is by Naima Penniman. And it is also connected to the dedication of the very book as well, which also tells a story of resilience, tells a story of resistance. And it's, as you can see, it says, our ancestral grandmothers braided seeds in their hair before being forced to board transatlantic slave ships, believing against all odds in a future of sovereignty on the land. So my thoughts are framed around, first of all, okay, maybe before I continue, the Soul Fire Farm is actually an existing farm in the US, and just to summarize their own description, the Soul Fire Farm is an Afro-Indigenous centered community farm committed to uprooting racism and seeding sovereignty in the food system. With deep reverence to the land and wisdom of our ancestors, we work to reclaim our collective right to belong to the earth and have agency in the food system. We bring diverse communities together in this healing land to share skills and sustainable agriculture. Okay, here's where the glasses would be good. Natural building, spiritual activism, health, and environmental justice. We are training the next generation of activist farmers and strengthening the movements for food sovereignty and community self-determination. So it's an existing farm, not just an abstract concept, and it's still running presently. Now, my thoughts of this being a poetic inquiry is also connected to a broader perspective of what poetry is. And in this thinking of what poetry is, of course, I was and am very inspired by Audre Lorde. Poetry is not a luxury. But then also Robin D.G. Kelley in Freedom Dreams, the Black Radical Imagination, where he states that in the poetics of struggle and lived experience, in the utterances of ordinary folk, in the cultural products of social movements, in the reflections of activists, we discover the many different cognitive maps of the future, of the world not yet born. Poetry, therefore, is not what we simply recognize as the formal poem, but a revolt, a scream in the night, an emancipation of language and ways of thinking. Now, maybe those of you who went to school here, I don't know how your experience was with poetry, but for me in school, poetry was used as punishment. So we had to read and learn poems, not any kind of poems, but poems that had nothing to do with us, by so-called classical old white men. And it was really used as punishment. So if you misbehaved, if you were schlimm, you had to really learn them by heart. So to re-find my way to poetry was a long journey. And in this journey, another ancestor, Mai Ayim, who is the most known Afro-German poetress, helped me. And when she started writing, she didn't have any role models within the German context, but she created and mapped out a world for us who came later and spoke that. I mean, German is such a holy cow. It's very difficult to find a space within the language, and she did that. Speaking as a black person in a language, or a person of color, in a language that is denied to us, because German is still very racialized, it's supposed to be spoken by white people, is and was a very powerful act. So poetry has always played a very central role in our legacies of resistance, in our legacies of healing. And I know that Topoke has found words in situations where we were at loss of words. I remember when we were sending off Shibane, try not to cry, Shibane Wagwe was killed in 2003. Okay, I honor my tears, But please come later. Okay, so, thank you. We were at the airport. If I say we, it was, I don't know if you remember, as part of the community, it was Platform Justice for Shibane Wagwe, which was led by mostly young black women. And we were at the airport to send off his corpse. There were children, there were elders, there were young ones, it was different generations. And Topoke held a speech. And I am still grateful for him to have found the words in this moment and so many other moments. We have songs, we have a poem by Ishraga Mustafa Hamid, dedicated to Shibane Wagwe. We also have a poem dedicated to Makuzuma Fuma, also by Ishraga Mustafa Hamid. And you mentioned songs being so powerful. We have, of course, Bruder Shibane, the song that you created. We also have Die for Nothing by Prince Secker. So this has always been a space of mattering, it has been a space of healing, it has been a space of expression in multi-leveled ways. And I'm just so grateful for all of you creators in this sense. Now, as I'm speaking, and I'm trying not to, how much time? Okay, as I'm speaking, I also feel like I'm almost like a time traveler. I left Austria about 13 years ago, and I always came back, but it's different to visit than to be. So it's almost like I'm re-arriving at a deeper understanding of the Austrian present. And in this journey of re-arriving in a deeper present, it gives me an interesting perspective. And the world that we are living in is a world, and I just want to, as you can see, I love quotes. So this is Kevin Kwesi from the book Black Aliveness as a Poetics of Being. So we are struggling to become, we're struggling to be, we're struggling to decolonize ourselves as an ongoing process that, as you have also mentioned, transcends time and space. It is transcending time and space, but it's also a world where there is no outright assumption of black humanity. Why else, and I'm now paraphrasing Kwasi, why else would Black Lives Matter make sense? So indeed, black humanity, and now I'm quoting, has to be argued over and over again. And yet, we might suppose that every black text rests on a quiet premise of black humanity. Now, I'm quoting from I don't know if it was a manifesto from Legacy of Healing, so I took some parts. So we come from a city that notoriously represses, forgets, and twists memory. So it is, as I said, a very complicated place to be.
If I can add, actually, this came out of a talk that we had with each other in the, where was that? In the Burggarten or Heldenplatz. And actually, that's where I got the idea to write this down.
Okay. Yeah, so and it's a city that represses and forgets multidimensionally in many different dimensions. As I said, it's a post-Nazistic, it's a neo-colonial space, and those silences basically come together. Now, I want to make a little bit of a maybe drastic switch, but Erwin Ringel, who was a psychiatrist, in his book, The Austrian Soul, which didn't go down very well because he really named the heart of the Austrian soul in a very critical way and was very much criticized for that. I just want to play a short clip. I think this. Sorry, I did it double. I think it really so well expresses this this sugarcoating that is so violent, that repression that is so violent. And Erwin Ringel said that this could be called the secret anthem of the Austrians, right? So basically, happy is who forgets what anyway can't be changed. But it's only through forgetting that it can't be changed. It could be changed if you don't forget it. So you make sure that things always stay the same and things are unchangeable by this almost religion of forgetting. So I really think this is reflected in so many ways, this repression in music and culture. So this is a very, like I said, a very good place to study repression. Now, moving forward to what Fatima El-Tayyib calls racism amnesia, or also Stuart Hall calls a selective amnesia in the Western world. There are certain things that are remembered, certain things that are glorified, and certain things that are completely forgotten. At the same time, there's also, of course, the glorification of imperial violence. Now, Fatima El-Tayyib also expresses this mechanism, this racism amnesia, in the following way, when she says, it's an active process of forgetting, stating that in this active process of forgetting, events and movements are rendered meaningless by classifying them as isolated phenomena without context, without cause and effect, in short, without reference, and thus without a place in the collective memory. Thus, regularly repeating cycles of verbal and physical outbreaks of racist violence can be ignored, as can the resistant movements of those whom these outbreaks are directed against. So, like, for example, the ISD, which is the initiative of Black people in Germany, ADEFRA, Black Women's Movement, which was founded and led by Black lesbian women who are very central for the Black movement of the 80s and cannot be marginalized. The Voice, a refugee initiative that has been active for 20 years. Oh, that was a lot of them. By never being thought of together, explaining racism as a reaction to a sudden appearance of the stranger requires that any recognition of a non-white presence always seems to happen for the very first time. This marks it as a state of exception, but at the same time, it empties it of any lasting consequences. So if we think of Black history, the Black presence in Austria, it's a long history, yet it is a history that always seems to happen, as Fatima El Tayyib just explains, for the very first time in this moment because of this constant erasure. How am I doing?
You're fine.
Okay. I'm taking another quote from
VHZ, Vienna Human Zoo.
VHZ. We are the descendants of those who opposed the cold, studious, piercing, and destructive gaze. And here I also want to quote Audre Lorde. It is not as if we have not always been here since here existed. It is just that the letters of our names have gotten mixed up, if not completely erased. Our fingerprints on the levers of history have been called the fleeting touches of birds, Audre Lorde. And this is also a practice that I can share from the research, that names are constantly, in archives, they're constantly misspelled. And not only are they misspelled, a lot of names are lost. So we often don't know what the own name is. Sometimes it's only the enslaved name that's passed on. And even if its name is also placed, I did a research on the 60s and looked at the surveillance material. That's the generation of my father, who we were talking that our fathers might even have known each other. We can't ask them anymore. Or maybe we find the technology to ask them, but it might be a bit more complicated. So I looked at these files, surveillance files, and in these surveillance files, there are constant misspellings, and Uganda and Ghana are sometimes mixed up, just as an example. So it's a form of colonial arrogance. Now, I want to name Josephine Soliman and Sabo Koshim Al-Musid, and I'm saying that this is the name that has been passed on, and this name might have been butchered. I don't know what the real spelling is, but this is the name that has been passed on. Josephine Soliman, I'm assuming that some of you might have heard of the name. Yeah, yes? Yes, okay, all right. So for the research group of Black Austrian history, Josephine Soliman was a starting point for our research. Josephine Soliman is the child of Angelo Soliman, who lived in the 18th century in Vienna. And after Angelo Soliman died, his parts of his body were exhibited in the Emperor's Museum. And his daughter, Josephine Soliman, fought for him to be buried, fought for her father to be buried, fought for her father to be unobjectified. And in our search, in our yearning to find the history of collective resistance, we had to also reconceptualize what resistance means. And one of the very helpful concepts here was the concept of Eigensinn. And if you speak German, and Eigensinn, if somebody calls you eigensinnig, it's mostly not as compliment. You might see it as compliment, but it's usually not like, oh, du bist so eigensinnig. But at the same time, if we look at Eigensinn, we could, like you might have done, like remap it as sense of self. That's what it literally means. Eigensinn, self of sense, in the face of the violence of othering. And I want to jump to Maya Yim. This is from her poem, Blues in Black and White. where she describes the violence of othering as over and over again. There are those who are dismembered, sold off, and distributed. Those who are, where, shall remain the others. Over and over again, the actual others declare themselves the only real ones. Over and over again, the actual others declare on us war. Now, I want to show you an example of this constant re-arrival of Black people, of people of color, here in the Austrian space. This is from the so-called Pichari Lager. It was one of the human zoos in Prater, and that was organized in 1899. And interestingly enough, in this so-called Pichari Lager, there was a collective strike of the people that were exhibited and dehumanized, because they were stopped from taking, how do you call it? Like if you collect money from the audience, so they were stopped from doing that. And then in the midst of the so-called performance, they collectively went on strike, which completely flipped the script of this being a reality show and so on. So what also happened in this so-called Pichari Lager was that there was an arsenal attack. And in this arsenal attack, Sabo Koshim al-Musid was killed. And so she died in 1899, which is exactly 100 years before, in 1999, which was a very important year for the Black resistance, community resistance in Vienna. So to give you a connection also to Sylvia Sharp in the book In the Wake, Blackness and Being. So what you see on the left side is a flyer that we created. So it was the network of African communities that organized protests before the killing of Marcus Omofuma. But for the mainstream, our protest started with the killing of Marcus Omofuma, but we were already organized when he was killed. And we organized a wake keeping, and it was a network of different Black organizations. Now, I connected that to Sylvia Sharp's questions of the wake, which is described here: wake, a watch, a vigil held beside the body of someone who has died, sometimes accompanied by ritual observances, including eating and drinking. And the questions that are raised here are questions that I also find global, and also hitting the heart of the questions that I find we also deal here. What does it mean to defend the death? And I find that this is also a question that Healing Legacies is dealing with in a very healing way. So what does it mean to defend the dead, to tend the Black dead and dying, to tend to the Black person, to Black people always living at the push towards our death? It means work. It is work. Hard emotional, physical, and intellectual work that demands vigilant attendance to the needs of the dying, to ease their way, and also to the needs of the living. So it is again transcending time and space. And when I was listening to you talk about the human zoos, I just wanted to show an example for the consistency. It was in 2005 that a zoo in Augsburg thought it was a great idea to have an African village in the zoo. Now, this was, of course, met with protests, and you can see a poster that was created by ADEFRA and ESD, but it also shows a form of consistency. I mean, there was a lot of protest, but at the end of the day, one of the arguments of the zoo was that it was the most successful time that they had experienced during that time. I want to believe that this would not go down like that anymore today. Now, in the interest...
Burn that shit down. Swear to God.
Now, in the interest... I'm just worried about... Okay.
Don't worry, I tell you, don't worry.
Now, the practice of objectifying Black people, then a practice of objectifying people of color, indigenous people, in the human zoos that took place in Vienna also took place all over Europe. And the time is also, it's in the project 1896. It's the 19th century, which is the century of imperialism. So it's not a coincidence that this human zoos took place in this time, during this era. Now, connected to this practice is also a previous history, and I shortly spoke about Josephine Soliman resisting against her father being exhibited that way. He was not alone exhibited. There was also Pietro Angiola. Usually I know it by heart. Okay, I have a film recipe. Pietro Michele Angiola, Joseph Hammer, and then again a little child. It's passed on that it's a girl, but I want to say child, of whom we don't know anything except that the body was exhibited. We don't know the name, not even the name is passed on, which is also, again, showing the violence of the archive. Now, in the 18th century, and I'm just curious to know if any one of you has heard the name Sarah Bartman before. Okay, somebody?
Show of hands.
So, okay, all right. So some of you have heard the name Sarah Bartman before. So Sarah Bartman was born in South Africa and was violently kidnapped from South Africa, and her body was exhibited in Europe, and she died in 1815 in Paris. And even after she died, her body parts, especially her feminine body parts, were put in formaldehyde, and her remains were still in Paris, in the Musée de l'Homme. And it was only after, at least on the official side, the downfall of the apartheid, that the struggle to return her remains started. And finally, in 2002, she received the official state funeral, but it took so long for her to rest. Now, I would like to play a poem by Diana Ferris. It's called "I've Come to Take You Home," and it's a tribute to Sarah Bartman. But even when we say, even when we say Sarah Bartman, we don't know what her own name was. It was definitely not Sarah, and it definitely wasn't Bartman. So it also is a reflection of the depth to which we are posing those questions of becoming, of decolonizing. So, it's about 4 minutes.
No, that's not it. No, I have to go to another one. Yes, exactly.
Is it from the beginning?
Yes.
I've come to take you home. A tribute to Sarah Bartman. I've come to take you home. Home. Do you remember the veld? The lush green grass beneath the big oak trees. The air is cool there, and the sun does not burn. I have made your bed at the foot of the hill. Your blankets are covered in buchu and mint. The proteas stand in yellow and white, and the water in the stream chuckles, sings songs as it hobbles along over little stones. I've come to wrench you away, away from the poking eyes of the man-made monster who lives in the dark with his clutches of imperialism, who dissects your body bit by bit, who likens your soul to that of Satan and declares himself the ultimate God. I've come to soothe your heavy heart. I offer my bosom to your weary soul. I will cover your face with the palms of my hands, run my lips over the lines in your neck, feast my eyes on the beauty of you, and I will sing for you, for I have come to bring you peace. I've come to take you home where the ancient mountains shout your name. I have made your bed at the foot of the hill. Your blankets are covered in buchu and mint. The proteas stand in yellow and white. I've come to take you home where I will sing for you. For you have brought me peace. For you have brought us peace. Thank you. God bless you.
Es gibt ein Organ, was dafür verantwortlich ist, dass ganz viele...
Capitalism.
Yep. So this is also the poem that Diana Ferros performed at the state funeral in 2002 in South Africa. So I'm finding my end. I mentioned before Eigensinn, and I want to quote Jean Harriet Warren, opening the concept up, saying that Eigensinn, literally translated as sense of self, as I mentioned before, its composite means stubbornness, unruliness. This evokes what is at stake in inventing ourselves from the ashes of multiple repeated onslaughts of pathologization. It doesn't come out. Pathologization. Pathology. Yes. But you see the word. You see the word. Now, this is an ongoing process, and Josephine Soliman, by simply fighting for her father to be buried, showed Eigensinn. It was a time where this was even packaged, it was normalized. This was a violence that was normalized. It was behördlich genehmigt, alles, you know, everything in its correct way. And it was even seen as a compliment. His beauty is so admirable that he should be exhibited. Now, coming to another quote, we are the legacies of the healing. This is a picture that was taken at the largest protest after the murder of George Floyd in Vienna, where there were more than 50,000 people in Vienna. And it was mostly, and at that time I wasn't here, I was just following everything from where I was in the US. But what I witnessed, even from a distance, that it was mostly young people that actually organized. It was mostly young black people, mostly people of color that organized this protest, and that also forced Austria to recognize that this is a global issue. This is not just somewhere in the US. They also had a very clear statement to the reality of institutional racism here in Austria. Now, real quick now, there's black people in the future. I just wanted to say real quickly that this is from an artist based in the US called Wormsley, and I just wanted to be short, but it started in the US in a gentrified space, but the artist has also invited this to be used and translated in a different context. So this has been translated in different contexts, it's reappearing in different contexts. And yes, I will end with a quote from Gloria, and I need help with the pronunciation. I don't want to mess it up.
Gloria Ansaldúa.
That's how I would have said it too. Okay, Gloria Ansaldúa. From this bridge we call home. For positive change to occur, we must imagine a reality that differs from what exists. By focusing on what we want to happen, we change the present. The healing images and narratives we imagine will eventually materialize. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Araba. Thank you, Topoke. Words can be blunt. Words can be beautiful. Words build who we are. History, it's always very complex, and we need narratives. I am very glad that this panel started with people of color, and we are here because Legacies of the Healing needs to go beyond a performance, because research is extremely difficult when you're a people of color, because history is inaccessible in terms of legitimacy, strength. So you have to dig in a way that you have to pave the way. There is no way. So I found so important to call you here and that you share that with us, because as a person of color myself, I know how difficult it is to search about the past. And somehow tonight was difficult. I'm very thankful that you were here to also understand that sometimes it is difficult and we have to go through this, because healing is this path. Sometimes it needs to get harder to get better. You hear that a lot on healing. But here we are, and I'm very thankful for you to share what you have reached, because I know how difficult it was to gather all this knowledge and to pass it. Because it's, as you said, we carry so many memories from the past. We want to carry, as you mentioned, Gloria Ansaldúa, memories of the future. Thank you so much for tonight. We have a few minutes still, and we would like to open for questions if anybody has any question.
There is a microphone there, so don't be
Yes.
shy. And please, we would be more than happy to communicate with you and share with each other. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to refer to the two quotes. One by Fatima El Tayyib, that is the beginning with this active process of forgetting, and the one by Kevin Quashie about this struggle of black humanity. And to add, because George Floyd was also mentioned, that for me it was very disturbing when this slogan, Black Lives Matter, was again and again repeated, and several cases were mentioned in the newspaper, and then only once I briefly found one newspaper article where also women who were killed were mentioned. And that then I realized that there's a gender gap in between of this. So it's not only a legacy of what we can remember, or if the name is misspelled, but also whose name is even mentioned, and whose story counts and matters, and because then you can only know what the ancestor is if there's someone you can refer to, because it seems that there is a hierarchy even in terms of gender, and I wanted to really affirm that, and so because we cannot say okay, there's a few incidents, but then it's not only one gender,
And we could also extend it, disability as well, Black Trans Lives Matter.
Yes.
It's definitely, I can only agree. Thank you for bringing that in.
Thank you for the very intense input that you gave, and I also felt you not only in this one moment, but more often, because it was horrible shit you were sharing. And I wanna thank you for sharing this rage and this anger that was very, very perceivable. And the big frustration to struggle also against this shit that is so hegemonic in racist Austria, right? And with this thank you, I also want to thank Araba for this footnote after your talk, and a kind of insistence I think that we can also easily give up to, an insistence on connecting different struggles. That you also, not today, because I just had this speech in mind that was very beautiful. I think back then I also came to you and I told you that it was a solidarity demonstration for the people in Palestine, and you were very much plaidoyer, like.
Isn't it the same plaidoyer? No.
Plea? No. What is the verb?
I understand.
Arguing for actually another kind of emotion, another kind of affect that was very present today, which was rage. And back there, you very much talked about love and the insistence on connecting the different struggles, which is, amongst others, a connection between the struggle against post-colonial racism and post-Nazistic anti-Semitism and Nazism today. And I just wanted to add this to the history, because it's a bit of a contrast today, and I think that's also what we talked today about the contrast that Denise Palmieri talked about, that words can be very different, and especially when we're struggling to find words for stuff that is actually pretty difficult to talk about, and that I also see in the conclusion of Araba, and I'm just trying to think actually along with you rather than to something else, to see this contrast also in this the struggle for an Eigensinn, right? Like a certain insistence not to be dehumanized, to be told to be nothing, and to say no, we are, and I'm saying we are something, we're struggling against this shit. And then a struggle for creating also these bridges that Anzaldúa talks so much about, that easily gets lost, I think, when we're too much stuck in this identification that rage sometimes might be very helpful. Sorry, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you, I get you, I
yes.
understand you, thank you.
Shortly. I don't like the word post-colonialism because colonialism is still working and we should name it on this, okay? I don't like, really,
Yes,
don't like this word.
Thank you so much, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. I love you, I love you, I love you.
Ja, noch einmal vielen Dank für diese Diskussion, für die Präsentationen. Vielen Dank, Araba, dass du noch das Thema Ausbrüche so 2005 thematisiert hast, weil der Organisator ist derjenige, der Afrika-Tage in Wien organisiert.
Ich weiß, wir haben protestiert.
Wir haben protestiert und er hat vor 10 Jahren dann Kamele eingeführt. Also afrikanisches Festival in Wien 2023, wir haben noch Tiere neben afrikanischen Ständen. Also und das wird massiv von der Stadt Wien auch finanziert. Das ist eine kleine Bemerkung.
That's why I didn't even go watch that shit.
Yeah, yeah.
So what you say, just want to say thanks so much because, I mean, you bring in here tonight the history, you know, like, I mean, because it's Black history in Austria and actually coming back, like how go to beyond of the pain, you know, like the pain that's actually everywhere and creating like an understanding, bringing like, it is not about explaining the healing as a knowledge, you know, but it's like even like to celebrate in community, you know, like the healing is a very powerful tool, you know, although it's for sure not always easy to, you know, because I mean, it's very full of this pain and we cannot get rid of this pain. Anzaldúa says that actually too, you know, that your wound is going to heal you, you know, it's not, you're not going to heal the wound, you know, so it's actually to remark that the wound is there, you know, it's not about actually to forget this wound, but how we can go beyond of that. And I thank you so much. What happened yesterday was actually, yes, as you both said, was the activation of this very colonial and painful space, through of taking the space and then actually celebrating and reconnecting. Yes, I mean, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I just want to maybe add also that even though I know I'm a controversial person and I know I like to walk on the edge, but it's not about me. It's not about me. I know it's not about me. But I just want to be that spark, like Tupac said. I want to be that spark that enables that flame to grow into somebody else to change the world. If I can be that spark that can light this fire in the heart of some of you out there that can change the world, then I want to be that spark. I want to be that flame. I want to be that fire. I want you to project your hate, your love, your pain, your struggles, everything on me. I can take it as long as you change the world.
So Legacies of the Healing was one step into healing. There we are trying to understand what healing means within our generation, because we have received from our ancestors the means of survival, and we don't want to survive anymore, and we want to live and we want to thrive. So we can pass that to the next generations, and we can only do that through healing and complexifying and understands all the levels of love and rage and forgiveness and blame it. All the layers are welcome within this path. So thank you so much for Legacies of the Healing.
Before you stop, I wanted to thank Simon. We talked yesterday, and you said something very interesting. We have, my wife and I have children that are adults now. My son is 27, my daughter is 25. We are now grandparents. And Simon said something very interesting, that we don't have money, we don't have fortune, we have nothing to give our children except ideas and the struggle. And that is, on the one hand, a very beautiful statement, Simon. On the other hand, it's so sad to see my son still fighting against racism, to see my daughter. I remember going to the kindergarten with her. My wife was pushing her in the trolley, and she was spat on. And until today, she's 25 now, and she still has to deal with this. And it's beautiful what you said, Simon, but it's at the same time, it's sad. And it comes back to what Araba said about Europeans tending to forget history, to pushing it aside, and it keeps repeating itself. It keeps repeating itself. I am tired. I have been doing this for over 20 years. So if you do not understand my rage, fuck you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we end up the WIENWOCHE first panel of discussion in Depo. I hope you have a great evening. And for those that are here, we will go on talking over the bar. And for those that are watching us, thank you for bearing with us and for witnessing this. And don't forget that we are the first, so there are more following. We have a meeting that Jelena Micic, our artistic director from the festival, will lead on Wednesday, or almost said Mittwoch. Anyways, it's the same. We will have you here we will have WIENWOCHE on Wednesday, we will have WIENWOCHE on Thursday, and we hope to see you on the next following days until the 24th when we close our festival. Thank you so much, and enjoy the evening.